Hi, what up, Santa Claus? Whoa, Tom Turkey. Our inflatable is out there getting his corn cob driving butt kicked by this wind. I'm about to go out there and extract it from the yard since Thanksgiving's been over for a hot minute. In this episode of Chop and Brew, the end of a most epic brew project, a high gravity lager in the form of a 14% triple Bock. Hello everybody and welcome to Chop and Brew. I am Chip Walton. I'm on my porch. It is a blustery winter day in Midway St. Paul, and look who showed up. The man, the kid, the legend, St. Nick, Santa Claus, with both the weather and Santa's cameo are very fitting, because for this episode I'm extremely excited to finally put a big shiny bow on a year-long brew project that includes brewing, fermenting, and lagering an epic high-gravity lager, 14% triple Bock, modeled after not only my favorite Christmas beer, but probably one of my top 5 beers of all time, Samichlaus. If you're a fan of the show, you know that I've been fairly obsessed with this beer for going on 15 years. We brewed some examples. We've done 12 beers of Christmas tasting, but this is the episode where finally get together with a group of brewers and really succeed in fermenting this with the help of a few other friends. A team of brewers from the St. Paul Homebrewers Club and myself took on this beast of a beer 1 year ago in December 2023, and through recipe, ingredients, and process succeeded in producing a few variants of this epic brew. In this video, we taste through the well-aged beers to see how they taste now alongside the pro version, and talk about the joy of brewing and drinking these kind of ultra high gravity lagers. It's a very impressive feat. Again, I'm extremely proud of this project. Before we get going, a huge shout out to Imperial Yeast for their amazing ongoing support of Chop and Brew, including in this case, propping up a mega pitch of a very special yeast, L49 Frosty, their Zurich lager strain, usually not available to homebrewers, just for our project. They also propped up a fresh pitch of their year-round available L17 Harvest to include in this side-by-side. See the links in the video description for not only our Samichlaus triple Bock recipe, including both Imperial yeast strains, but also for our previous pro tips interview with the lab on brewing high gravity lagers such as Doppelbocks, IPLs, Baltic porters, and the recipe for our Imperial yeast collaborative Doppelbock. Lots of goodies tucked away down in the video description. And also a mammoth-sized shout out to our Patreon party people for yet another great year of their support. If you like what's going on with this show, the Brew Day episodes, the pro tip interviews, please support us at patreon.com/chopandbrew. And as I mentioned a couple of times in the video you're about to see, we're not seeing a lot of Brew Day video because this is more about the tasting, but the Brew Day video is really worth checking out. A lot of mind-blowing visuals on the scope of this epic brew day from a year ago. So please check that out. Enjoy this sampling. I hope you get something about brewing, fermenting, and lagering mega high strength lagers. And chop for chop, brew for brew. Let's get into it. To the tasting table. What's going on, everybody? Chop and Brew at the end of a year-long journey to a table full of beer. This table was much cleaner an hour ago when we were like, let's figure out how to do this. And then more and more samples of Samichlaus showed up. A year-long lagering fiasco, it sounds like, to some extent. But I'm here again with Ross, Art, Garrick. You might remember them from mid-December in 2023. We brewed one of our bucket list beers, Samichlaus, aka Samichlaus, as we're calling it. The OG brewery calls it a triple Bock, which I'm glad they finally put that. That was never on the bottle. And I used to call it a quad Bock, which is confusing with a quadruple, but I was like, this is different than that. So 14% lager. We're here. We're going to tell you right off the top, there's a Brew Day video. I'm going to link below. Go look at that for all the dirty details of Brew Day, because there's plenty to talk about here. We got an 1134 wort that walked out the door, 64.5 pounds of grain plus a little bit of dark candy sugar. Frosty is a strain that Imperial doesn't really offer usually, but because they were intrigued on how this project would go, they propped it up. That's what we use. So fill us in after Brew Day video. How did fermentation, aeration, distribution go?
Pretty sure we gave it a couple of shots of 100% O2. And that was on recommendation from the yeast proprietors.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah.
You kept it, we fermented in kegs.
Correct.
All the batches. 3 batches, 4 batches?
3 batches.
3 batches. And you kept it in a kegerator fermenting cool. Correct. For months. 5 months, 6 months?
In the beginning, we started off cool. And then we brought it up to 60 about 65, which is kind of winter house temperature. And we let it go. Tasted it. And so at a point where I was kind of like, well, this tastes like it might be a good time to put this in put this back and lager it. We pulled 2 out of 3 kegs.
Yep.
Put them in the cooler.
Yep.
And then we're like, hey, let's, just see how this third one goes. And so we left that third one out at 65 to just keep on going for a couple more months.
And then 6 months later-ish, Art and Garrett come get their kegs. Everybody goes to their own lagering, packaging. There's an array of what happened after that. Yep. Garrett's kegerator went out.
Yep. So it's been sitting at whatever my garage is from the summer till now.
Yeah.
And we're hitting lager temps right now, by the way, which is perfect.
It's going to get better.
It's going to get better.
Art, did you bottle these right out of the gate and they're aging in bottles?
Yes.
Okay.
So 1 batch at a time, chilled the batch, and then I did not force the carbonation on. I just dialed it up and I let it sit for weeks.
Okay.
And then while that was occurring, the other batch was in the basement, just at basement temperatures. So that'd be like 67, 68 degrees.
The red cap.
The red cap. That's the one that saw the least amount of lagering. What Ross did on the white capped version was he did the cold crash on, and so I bottled that one first. I let the red one go last, and then same process. Did not force the carbonation. I let the carbonation just absorb.
Okay.
The difference is I didn't agitate the kegs to bring in the CO2.
Yep.
But I did allow the beer to cool before I put the CO2 on, so that the absorption would be better.
And then I had 1.5, 2.5, something like that gallons of this wort that I pitched Harvest into, which is a year-round Imperial strain, just to see. I can't remember if its alcohol tolerance on the website is 10 or 11, but it's not 13, 14. We got it to 13.4. So let's taste through them because I feel like more of the process notes will come out in that. Let's taste the OGs in the bottom left. Full disclosure, we've already done this, as you can tell by our rosy cheeks. Cheers. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We can say right out of the bat, like none of ours are on par with the OG, probably because of that dark candy syrup that we used. Not to a fault though, at all, but it should be pointed out that their classic is a little more, to me, Munich-y. I kind of call it red licorice liqueur. There's not a lot of roast or dark influence to speak of in it. It's almost like Maibach.
Yeah.
Amber Maibach on steroids.
Yeah. I like I almost want to say graham cracker, but that's too gritty. Like if there was an amber cracker, I would.
So, and it can also have a little age. These cans come out, they don't have years on them anymore, so you don't know Still delicious. Still one of my favorite all-time beers. Let's go to the one that we think is the best out of our batch, which I think is the bottom right, the white capped bottle.
Yes.
Again, saw the most time of its life cold. How is it different?
I think across all of ours, there is more of a cherry red fruit kind of character. This one, it's tucked in the same way that it's tucked into a Doppelbock, but it's that much bigger. So that's that much more of it. Little bit syrupy, but not in an unpleasant way, especially if you know it's going to be this big.
Yeah, should say it ended at 10.23, so 14.5% alcohol. The frosty yeast got to where it said it was going to go. I think a lot of this, one of the end takeaways from this is like recipe development. We've done this one time based on recipes from 2 or 3 other sources. I still think we did stellar compared to what I thought could happen. No shade on St. Paul Homebrewers Club. Just shade on trying to get a 14% beer without modifications, post-modifications.
50% lager without modification.
True. Also that too, yeah.
I think to me the big thing here is that so often we just see the recipe is what are the ingredients, and I think this is a really good highlight of recipe is entire process, because even those things that you may not know impact it, like poke on the cold side, on the cellaring side, the randomness that we experienced is going to impact all of these differently.
As far as like, it's not cloying at all. Like, yes, syrupy, but it's like it's thick, it's viscous, but it's not like
Still drinkable.
Sweet or cloying, but it's pretty well balanced, I feel.
And it's not boozy at all. There's no hot burn.
Yeah.
So
We'll get to boozy later.
okay.
So there's a little bit of alcohol in the finish that tells you that it's done, and then it goes away immediately.
It's done as a sip.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. In the same way that you might get an edge of bitterness around an IPA. Like, oh yeah, that's it. Your taste is done. It's gone. But that finish here is a little wrapper of alcohol.
Let's taste its cousin, the 65 degree for part of the year. Well, the early part of the year too. Like this is fermented.
Like 6 months.
This is a lager yeast being tested at ale temps. Is essentially what this is.
Yeah.
Doing a triple Bock lager.
Or the upper end of a lagering.
True. The more we're learning each year. Not undrinkable. I once made a Saison Noir. Shout out Chris England. Or who called me out. And this is like an Imperial version of that. It's like It's like Schwarzbier meets Saison meets triple. There's so much going on in this, but none of it's gross and like spit take, you know.
No, a little bit of tingly hot alcohol at the end, but not unpleasant. A little bit of nuttiness in the beginning.
It's a lot drier.
Yes. Yeah, you were suggesting that this one might have got down to what, 10-16?
10-18. Yeah.
Yeah. That's craziness.
So
I can't remember the math is, but I think the math is 15 and a half. I don't know. Math is hard.
And for some reason I don't know if you guys picked this up. It's leaving more on my tongue.
Yeah.
For sure.
And like an IPA, but not the same, not a bitterness aftertaste. So it's a sweet, dark fruit, pleasant coating.
I wonder if this one, the one we were just talking about, might get close to something like a shot of Jaeger. In terms of got a lot of flavor and that alcohol and intensity that you expect from a shot, is present in there, like sort of shifts from beer into that world a little bit.
Jaeger
Totally
minus
cooler.
licorice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always throw a little star anise in there and see what happens.
So we've had the Pro, we've had the Cousins. On our upper right, we've got Garrick's.
That's right.
Finished at 10:30, so still in this range of 14, I'll just call it.
Garrick's Kegerator, RIP.
R.I.P.
So it was
Oh,
lagering post Ross's house, then it stopped lagering.
Yep, sometime in the summer. So the difference here is a lot more acidity, a lot more red cherry. Again, but no hot alcohol. Still kind of pleasant.
It's not like Flanders Red, but it feels like
It does.
if a barley wine got mixed with the Flanders
Yes,
Red.
yes,
At like 30-70 maybe, like 30 Flanders. So many weird things going on in these beers.
Mhm.
But all still
The mouthfeel is very Flanders Red.
thin. You called it the thinnest, even though it's really no different in FGOG. It's maybe
I think
what's happened in that warmer temp zone.
Some bacteria maybe started. I mean, if you're up at in a garage at 100,
yeah.
or we didn't have a lot of hot temperatures, so in the 90s.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Who knows?
Imperial Flanders.
Imperial Flanders. That's how I'll frame it for Thanksgiving this weekend. Yeah.
Oh.
It's actually, I mean, it does taste
spin.
cranberry adjacent. It tastes tart cherry adjacent for sure.
The other delightful thing to keep in mind is just the attempt to carbonate any of these.
Yeah, you just had to force carbonate. Like, there was no hope of.
Yeah.
Will it carbonate?
Yeah.
Maple syrup. Will it carbonate? It might.
The answer is no.
So bottom middle on the Hollywood Squares, we have the only beer not fermented with the Frosty strain. This is Imperial's Harvest, a year-round strain. They asked us, as long as we're making all this unending boil kettle of wort, let's throw in some Harvest. They gave us a fresh pitch. The idea was like, I think it's advertised at like 10 or 11% alcohol content. We got it up. And I will say I was happier with it till I tasted it against the others, but I'm still not mad at it. I think maybe just like, all right, it got to 13, but is it better suited for like a Doppelbock or some other big lager that's not quite 1134 starting? It's still only 1132, but to me it tastes like a different 1132 finishing gravity than the other ones.
Do you remember kind of what happened with your process? Like what your fermentation was at? Like, because that could be
It's a whole year ago.
I know. It's like
I know it
think
was 55. It was it started at room temp there just because we finished on a Saturday. I didn't get back to Monday to pitch, so I don't think there was anything that different about it that I can think of. But it
The
tastes.
Harvest has kept a richness, a depth that I don't think the others have. A malt depth.
We likened it to kind of chocolate.
Yeah.
Some mid-level of almost like a milk chocolate too, not like a chocolate malt, not a bitter, sweet baker's chocolate. There's something very Hershey bar about this in my mind a little bit.
Halloween, fun size.
I was gonna say shout out Halloween recently. I'm still happy with it because it's not 1050, 1060. It didn't poop out like super early, but yeah, it doesn't quite have. So I was gonna say if you're gonna maybe make this recipe or even a bigger Imperial lager recipe with this yeast, you might tweak other things in the actual recipe. The water, we didn't do a whole lot of anything special there, but if you wanted to crisp out a little bit, there's probably something else you can do in the water, maybe, or even the hopping to make this seem a little less brownie. To me, it comes across as a little like liquid brownie, but the numbers don't lie.
Those candy corn with the chocolate as one of the thirds of the candy corn.
It is. You said corn, right? When we had this.
Yeah, I felt a little corn or kind of I felt this one had a little bready, buttered toastiness to it as well, but there's a lot going on there. Chocolate is definitely there as well.
Do this project. It's worth it. You're going to learn something really cool.
And it's kind of bonkers. You could do this on a stovetop on a very small scale and, pitch something Zerg lager of any stripe or harvest, or what were you going to say, Art?
I was pleased with the outcome of all the beers because the fear was that they were going to come out a little too sweet or a little too hot.
The other direction.
But only the one is a little hot, and I'm hoping maybe with a little bit of aging that boozy alcohol is going to just blend in, or it just might stay. I don't know, but they all turned out really well.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the point of all of this was, can we get a wort that big on brew day? Will the yeast get us a wort fully fermented by the end, and then can we not drink it within the scope of a year, which I failed at. But
those were the three primary goals.
They were only little 1 gallon batches. You can't blame me. And you guys have plenty to go into the holiday season. Talk to me a little bit about what a beer like this, kind of what you think about for sharing, for enjoying. Do you sit on it longer?
As I mentioned to Chip when we sat down for this, I'm a little afraid of this beer. So I will share it widely to get it out of my cellar.
It was a free beer thanks to Northern Brewer and Imperial. So I feel that, where you're like, I tasted it. I like it. I'll save a little, but it's not like you have to fight for it tooth and nail.
I'm not going to make a 14% my daily driver.
I don't share your sentiments on this. Okay,
I don't either. Me and I seem to be simpatico here.
I mean, I know in my circle, in my neighborhood, there's only a few people that may appreciate something like this, and the one person in my neighborhood that will appreciate that is me.
Oh, okay.
and I may be a little bit more stingy with it. I will share it. There are opportunities that, if somebody says, hey, do you have a big beer? I'm heading to Chicago this weekend, or this Thanksgiving. I might be inclined to bring 4.
You could say, I did have a good beer. You should see this video about how yummy it was. What about you, Ross? Like, you've had no plethora of other things to distract you from drinking this beer, so.
I haven't really drank any of it, man. I just tried, 2 bottles, but I think, give it to somebody who you think will appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And, because it is a feat. I mean, an 34? 1134, basically all malt beer. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a little bit of a feat.
To me, that is the magic of the brewing overall, and this kind of project is all of that effort and coordination and work that we did to hit those numbers still comes into a glass that we could put almost anything into. But to know that the only way you can get this variation is to go through that level of effort. I mean, that's the magic of this whole thing.
And I was surprised that it wasn't darker beer, a darker outcome on SRM based on the amount of carafa that was in the recipe. My experience has been, 3 ounces of carafa can make a nice black IPA, and we had a lot.
I guess that's what 64 pounds of base malt will get you, though.
Yeah. It's all about your percentage.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yep.
We will include our recipe. Oh my gosh, the Falconclaws, the simplified Falconclaws. I have a full list of things here. The Brew Day video, go check that out. It was super fun. We probably included some of that video here, but it was fun watching it back the last 2 days, like how our faces are just like, what did we just do? Like we gotta pitch yeast. Also, the high gravity lager interview I did with Imperial, they kind of set the scene for this. It was more about like Bocks, Doppelbocks, my Bocks, Imperial IPLs or IPLs, but you know, it kind of starts leaning you towards thinking about how to think something like this. And then I brewed another beer. I don't know if anyone remembers. Sorry, it didn't last long enough, but I brewed that little baby smoked German something. I called it Little Rauch Nick because the third runnings of this beer, and I re-steeped it with some smoked malt that we happen to have on hand from the Norwegian Brew Day, whole other thing. So all of that will be linked below. A link fest down in the video description. So does anyone else have anything to say about Samichlaus or Samichlaus? Besides do it. Find some people and
Find
brew
some
it.
people and do it.
Or scale it down and do it on your darn stove. Like, it's super intimidating, right?
Super intimidating.
You guys made it more super intimidating by being like, oh, we're doing 20-gallon brew kettle of this? Okay. I thought maybe we would just, but it's intimidating, but what's the thing about intimidation?
We took an intimidating recipe and then we 4 or 5x'd it. And so that is, but that is all thanks to you, Chip. Thank you. We don't need to make it that ridiculous.
No.
If you've got this on your bucket list, find a way to do it in 2025.
I would say we pulled from many sources. I'm not going to say ours is the best because there's like 4 or 5 out there, including whoever is a bigger brew celebrity than us. But I do think this was a pretty darn dialed in recipe. Yeah. I think I would actually leave the carafa out if you want it to be more like the OG, if you can find it and even care about sticking true to it. If not, what we made is excellent. Triple Bock, as the can says, 14%. All that like clean, malty goodness of a Bock, Doppelbock. And then it's like increased cousin. And the fact that we made it a year. Like, goodness gracious. Cheers to that. I really didn't think, I don't know. You guys clearly don't drink as much from the basement.
I've been working on my kitchen.
I was like, this would have been gone if we had 3 gallons of it. It was almost gone with 1 gallon of it.
I thought the point was to hold on to it till Christmas. So
I think it kind of, that's my point. Is like brew it now,
self-control.
Enjoy it in 2025, like 12/25, 2025.
Yeah.
All the 25s.
All right.
We need food.
So 25 ounces.
Yes.
All right, chop for chop, Samichlaus for Samichlaus. We did it. You guys did it and then brought it to my house.
Cheers.
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 Thank you, Chip.
And Don was here on the couch.
The producer.
Absolutely.
Did you bring any beer?
Amazing.